So welcome to Backstage Pass. My name is Mark Tippin. I'm the head of services with Mural, and my co-host is Haley Temple, who's our services lead. And for the next 60 minutes, we're going to take you behind the scenes of a teamwork session. Hopefully our guest of honor will be in here in time.
Yeah.
We encourage you to use the chat and the QA channels to offer comments and ask questions as we go. I've already said hello, so good to see. We've got Santa Monica. Oh, bonjour from France. Good to see you, Oliver. Oliver. Oh, sorry. So use that to say hello. Use the Q&A panel if you have questions, and that helps us keep track of questions that don't get lost in the threads. Our goal is to help you gain confidence in using Mural in a variety of use cases. That's why we always change it up, something new every week. We hope this inspires you to use your facilitation superpowers in new ways with your teams. As always, to help you get the most from this session, Haley and I will call attention to methods, Mural features, and any best practices we see demonstrated along the way, and help provide some commentary so you can get the most out of things as they happen. I'm going to hand it over to Haley.
Yeah. Thanks, Mark.
Welcome.
And Kapil has joined us as well from India, and he has his ever-changing and beautiful backgrounds for us to keep us inspired. So thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.
All right. So you guys are seeing my screen, right?
Yes, I can see it.
Perfect. Okay. So we are going to jump into our challenge or activity in a moment. But before we do, I'm trying to, and I got inspired this morning by a podcast by Daniel Stillman's Conversation Factory. So I want to open with a question for you, our panelists here, and for our audience listening, and get you guys actually active in the chat. So what I'm going to do is ask the question. I'll give you 1 minute as our panelists to think about your response, and then I'll give each of you 1 minute to share your answer. Sound good?
Okay. Do I get to play along too today?
You do. Please
Oh,
do. I'm curious to hear your response. Okay. So, and for those of you who are joining us live, please think about your response for a minute. Don't get too eager to type things in yet. Just reflect and then share in the chat. So the question is, why do you do the work that you do? And I'm going to give you 1 minute. I'll say the question again. And maybe just highlight 3 things. Or you can highlight what is your work, and then 2 things about why you do it. But that's your question. Why do you do the work that you do? I'll give you 1 minute to think.
Okay, so I kind of know the answer because I made certain career choices based on my conviction.
Okay.
So I can go straight at, so when I was in college and I was studying computer science engineering that point in time, I attended a workshop once. It was what we call a T-group seminar, behavior change, all of that. So that was a life-changing moment for me, where I saw this person on stage and do some magic in 3 days, where everything changed for me in terms of how I looked at life and how I did things. And I wanted that for myself, to be in that position to influence people, the way they think, the way they perceive reality for the better. So that's something that has motivated me. So after engineering, I totally changed my field. I eventually got into training and development, got a lot into doing behavior and sales training, and eventually I found my way into design. Because what I felt very strongly was that good design is the easiest way to induce behavior change.
That's a great quote.
I know. I was like, can we get like a mug or a sticker with that? Jeez. I love that. All right. Thank you for sharing, Kapil. I appreciate that a lot. All right. So that's, and then we can capture more of those coming from the chat too. But Mark, I'm going to give you 1 minute. Why do you do the work that you do?
So my career kind of was a random series of events until a couple things happened. Like Kapil, I was at Autodesk managing design teams when I was introduced to Luma and Luma methodologies. And a lot of the methods around design thinking I knew, but what I didn't have is a sense of efficiency or kind of a structure about how to use them and when to use them. And similarly, almost in one moment, it was like someone put my design mind into crisp focus, and suddenly two things happened. One, I realized I don't have to be some genius that knows more than everyone in the room. All I need to do is be able to listen and facilitate the conversation and draw out the genius in whatever group is gathered. And that was a huge pivot, because work was very stressful up to that point. I felt you have to know more than the people in the room. So having the methods and the tools you need to do the job and understanding how you can apply them unlocked the potential to guide any conversation. I don't have to know about oil rig construction or diamond cutting or anything to be able to listen and guide a conversation. And that's why facilitation, and then doing it at distance with Mural, is just even more impactful, and helping other people do that is where I've really found my purpose. So
awesome, thank you. And I love I'm this question is awesome. I cannot take credit for it. I found it from, I mentioned Daniel Stillman's Conversation Factory podcast this morning on my run. I listened to it. So, and I'm just looking at the answers coming in from the audience as well. So Robin likes helping groups have the conversations that they need to have. Jay, I captured our quote. Oh, thank you. He captured it accurately for me. There we go. That way we can get that sticker made. Jeremy loves accelerating other people's genius, and he does a great job at that.
Yeah.
And yeah, thank you guys for sharing. And thanks, Mark and Kapil, for answering the question. So with that, I'm going to invite us to start focusing on, shift a little bit to our challenge and what success looks like today for us. So Kapil and I connected on Slack, and we were talking about how he is facilitating an upcoming session across 2 days, and he's facilitating a group and also teaching them about design thinking in his organization. And of course, doing this online, where this presents unique challenges. So today he's asked us for some advice about making that space for the group to connect live, and then of course across 2 days, and even maybe if we have time, helping focus on using a mural for a specific activity that's going to be used as pre-work and then brought into the actual session. So for us today, success means that Kapil, and of course anyone here hosting a meeting, has more confidence about how to create that experience, especially across a couple of days, and especially when we're thinking about this design thinking approach that's of course very popular and very useful and valuable for that reason. And then also we want to make sure that if we, and I hope we have the opportunity to look at the mural specifically, he has the elements that set up the participants in his session. They're set up for success to do that. Sound good? Any questions? Any changes, Kapil?
We can pivot.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like 3 days.
Oh, it's 3 days. Okay. Apologies.
Yeah. So 1 day, like 2 days is the actual workshop. I'm giving them a break for like 1 week where they can prototype, test, and then come back for a 1 hour presentation where they will share what they came up with. Okay.
Awesome. So let me actually give you some time, and before I do that, I'll also let the group know that at a certain point we are going to actually invite you into this mural to share your thoughts and perspectives on how to do and how to accomplish what Kapil is going to share with us. So if you're interested in sharing and being part of this on this mural, please respond yes with all caps. I love seeing all caps to show your enthusiasm. And I will invite you into the mural at a certain point. And it takes me a little bit of time, but I'll get there. I see an enthusiastic crew. All right, so Kapil, with that, I'm going to invite you into this mural if you need it, and you probably will need it later on. But I'm actually going to hand the floor over to you to share an overview of your 3-day session, 3-day workshop, thinking about who are the people that are going to be there, some of the activities, of course, that you're going to be doing, but what I'm mainly interested in too is what do you want to make possible by having the group go through this experience? So does it help for you to show the agenda? I know you have like a Word doc for that, or how do you want to best show that?
Sure. I can show you the agenda and talk through it.
Yeah. How much time do you need, or would you like to do that?
I'll do it quickly, like 2, 3, 5 minutes max.
Okay, cool.
Let's put on a timer also.
Okay, I'll put the timer on to keep us honest. But let me stop sharing my screen, and I'll let you share your screen. And I'm trying to think of like a good way to, while you're doing that, I'm trying to think of a good way to let you know, because you're not going to see the timer.
Okay.
To let you know that time is up. But do it in a respectful way. Mark, I don't know if you have an idea.
I'm sorry. I had one foot in Hawaii in the QA panel.
That's okay. Okay, Jay recommended holding up fingers. So I think, yeah, I don't have a physical timer on me, but okay, what if I made a noise? Do you have your chimes? Oh, you have a time timer.
Yeah, here. Yeah,
Perfect.
there we go.
Okay.
So there we go. 5 minutes. I'll turn it up.
Okay, thank you.
There we go.
Coming in clutch here. All right.
Should I start?
Go for it.
Please do.
Okay.
See it. Great.
All right.
Yep. You'd zoom in a little bit for our viewers. Yeah. Cool.
Okay.
Much better. Yep.
Okay, great. So we are doing this introductory program on design thinking. The idea is that we have created hierarchies of programs for our participants, ranging from level 0, which is an absolute novice, to level 1, which is what we call an enthusiast. So this will be a follow-up to this will be a level 1 program. We will do a 1-hour webinar introducing design thinking to participants. So this is when things get serious. Okay, now people have shown some commitment, they've signed for the program. So they will have some awareness of design thinking, but not so much. So we'll have a group of maybe 8 to 12 people. That's, I suppose, the ideal size. The program is split into 3 days. So we have a total of 5 hours, 2 hours, 2 hours, plus 1 hour, which is a follow-up session where people will present. The intended outcome is, they'll understand the basics of design thinking. They'll understand our approach. We follow the double diamond approach, get some hands-on practice going through the entire cycle. So we will leverage that week that we have in the middle for them to really actually do stuff outside, talk to people, test ideas, prototype, rather than just doing within themselves in a group. Then, learn what type of mindset that is needed to be a successful design thinker. So we'll emphasize a lot on curiosity, empathy, co-creation, and prototyping. And the idea is that the program will double down on activities related with this. Then we have an online community in-house which operates on Teams. So we get an invite so that this becomes a recurring part of their ecosystem, so that they get more and more immersed into the design culture. So what we are planning is to do a pre-workshop, some activities which are pre-workshop. So there'll be a welcome mail 1 week in advance. We'll have an agenda. Since we are using Mural, so there will be a link for a crash course so that they can practice. We'll give them an assignment that they will show up in the workshop. That is to understand something or share something which they consider well designed. Just give them an idea to observe the world around them and see what they understand by the term design. So specifically talk not to bring up smartphones or Apple gadgets or things like that. 2 days before the program, there will be a reminder mail, and there will be a link to an icebreaker that we'll be doing on Mural. So that's that. Then we'll have the workshop once the entire process is done. So we'll have acknowledgement and break it down. So one day we'll have them give them PDF, and after 1 week after that, just to maintain continuity, we'll send some more communication. So this is the workshop outline that we've thought of. So there is the introduction, expectation setting. Then we'll jump to Mural, where we have the activities lined up, a bunch of icebreakers. We'll talk about then what is design, and we'll invite people to share the photographs that they have taken over the week and put it up on Mural. And then we'll have a small talk around what makes good design. 3 lenses of innovation. We'll talk about briefly about the ROI design thinking, where we'll share the McKinsey report, because we'll have a lot of, the audience is going to be somewhat mixed, and it's going to be across countries. So we're expecting participants from the UK, Ireland, from Hong Kong, maybe even from China and India. So, and there will be a lot of business teams involved. So we want to drill down, okay, this is not something, this is not a soft skill. This is something tangible. Companies have shown impact utilizing this. So we'll build a business case for that. Take a break.
1 minute left.
Sure. Then we'll have this activity around designing a bus. The idea is that we talk about experience and why experience is important. So we'll do this exercise, then talk about our model, the diamond approach, the discovery part, empathy, and questions. So that's where I need help. So we need to come up with a team challenge which can work effectively on Mural. And we'll give them assignment to work over during the rest of the day. Next day, we'll have a recap. Then we'll work on define, do the problem analysis, come up with the how might we statement. And then once we have that, we'll do the brainstorming activity, do a crazy 8 voting. Then we'll merge the teams. So initially we had like 4 teams of 3. Then we'll split the team, or combine the teams, and we'll have 2 teams of 6. Then they'll develop this idea and proceed. We'll talk about prototyping, show them some examples of how it's done, and then give them assignment for the rest of the week. And after 1 week, they'll come back, they'll share some feedback, and then they'll share the prototype, what they did, and what they came up with. And yeah, so that's about it. Okay. Then we'll have the ceremony, and that's about it. That's the thing.
So I wanted to zero in. If I could reflect back, I heard you say like there's a empathy exercise or discovery in the discovery phase, and is that specifically where you want to focus some attention today?
Yes.
Okay. And my first question is, I'm looking back at the agenda, trying to think about. I always consider at what point am I transitioning from talking at them and filling their heads up, with a lot of information, and then how long has that been before now I need them suddenly to be active? And if it's under an hour, then you can probably go straight into an activity and they're actually anxious to do it. If it's after lunch or, those kind of things, then you actually, you need to do something a little extra to get them thinking in those terms. Right. But it looks like this activity happens like an hour in. About.
Yes, because they will be working initially, even in the first hour, they will be doing a lot of stuff on Mural, doing the icebreakers and everything. Mm-hmm. So once they take a break, we'll immediately go into an activity so that they start to focus on what is at hand. So that's why we have this design of us. Mm-hmm. Then, so we have made sure it's a 2-hour session. So around 1 hour mark, we take a break. So
right. No, I see now. It's step 11 is where we're focusing. So we're yes. Like an hour and 45 into it, or almost 2 hours. Yeah. Okay.
Yes. So this is going to set the tone for the next day because that's their overnight homework. And there are going to be 2 challenges here because we have 4 teams. So we're going to give them 2 separate challenges, the same challenge for 2 teams because we are going to combine these teams later on.
Okay, so 15 minutes, I'm just reflecting on this. 15 minutes is pretty tight to actually do breakouts and come back because you lose a little bit. I'm just trying to reflect honestly on what I think it'll take to queue up, execute, and come back. Are you also in control of the conference software that you can use? Do you get to dictate it? You get to say we're going to use Zoom or whatever?
Yes. So we have Zoom, we have Teams.
Okay, it's because that's the other thing is the amount of work and the smoothness with which you can drop people into rooms and bring them back. It's much easier with some tools than it is with others.
Yes.
Yeah. So okay. So I just wanted to reframe. So we've got a big mural, we've got lots of people in there, and I just want Haley help me connect the dots between what Kapil wants and how we're going to leverage the people that are in the mural.
Yeah, in our mural, like for
mural,
this session,
yeah.
Right? Okay, yeah. So thank you, because I realized like I released this big mural for the crew. So I think what I would love to do is, Kapil, is have us go through some questions that you might have for our community, because think about it, we have 85 people here, and so we have 85 people who from different perspectives who can help us answer these questions. So is there what's one question we can start with that's fairly open, that the group on the mural can use their sticky notes to answer? Because every person in the mural right now has a space where they are able to answer questions. So if we look back at the mural, there's a big rectangle with an area, there's 3 sticky notes, and that's their space they've claimed to answer questions and add ideas to sticky notes. So, Kapil, what question can these these people in the mural or in the chat answer for you or with you?
I don't have the mural one.
Oh, here, let me. The mural link. You don't necessarily need the mural, Kapil. It's more like the group is in the mural, and since you're sharing your screen, I think it's good to keep it on screen and just for reference. But let me.
We do have a clarifying question for you, Kapil. Is the entire cohort 8 to 12 people, or are the breakouts 8 to 12 in a breakout?
The entire cohort is about 12 people, 12 to 16 max, yeah.
12 to 16. Okay. So when you're doing breakouts, you're doing maybe groups of 4.
Yes.
3 to 4 or something like that.
And Kapil, by the way, I shared the link in the chat, and I'm so you can see it and pull it up. But yeah, I've tried to limit the number of people in this mural, and even then, it's still pretty big.
Got it. So I'm saying we're getting a couple questions like, "Hey, where's the mural link?" But it's like the people that raise their hand first have been let in the door, and okay.
Correct.
Sorry, the door's closed.
The door is closed right now. Next week, having in mind. So, with thinking about, we have these people in the mural, they have a spot to answer questions. Is there a specific question about your workshop or your session that we can share and get advice on?
Oh,
from the
people
group?
would like to screen share though. The people that are currently viewing and that can't get into the mural need to see the mural.
Okay. Let me
Thanks for the clarification, Karen.
Yeah. Okay, here we go.
Yeah.
Here's the mural at a wide lens. And then ideally what I would like everyone to do is add their name to find an area and add their name to the area so we know it's your work. So Tatiana has her square where she's adding thoughts. So everybody here, Sandy's added a spot right here. That's hers. So everybody who's in this mural now should claim a spot. And that's where you're going to be answering questions or sharing ideas. So I made a ton of different areas for you to kind of work and play in. And if you are facilitating a big meeting like this, and even for Kapil, for you are doing this with a group, right? This is a really good way to give everybody almost like their own little tabletop area to work and create and play. It's a good practice to do. Although I hope it wouldn't be this kind of crazy and chaotic. I basically took one area and duplicated it really quickly and spread them out.
What's the keyboard shortcut you're using for that?
I used Command or Control D as in duplicate.
Yeah.
I don't have the link yet.
No? Okay. Let me see. I'm going to put it, I know we have a Slack thread as well. It's always good to have a backup, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to put it in Slack.
On my phone, so it's a long process.
Oh, no. Okay. Let me put it in the chat, but put it, like, I'm going to send it to you privately so that,
right.
Okay, here we go. Or it's going to panelists. So, and John, yeah, I know John, like, what are we putting on these sticky notes? So Kapil's gonna, Kapil, I imagine you have questions. Well, I'll wait till you're in the mural. Did that work?
No, I haven't received yet.
No, really, in Zoom?
No.
Like the Zoom chat?
Yeah.
Okay. So Zoom chat is, it's on my official laptop, so this is not, Zoom chat is not allowed.
Oh, okay, no worries. Okay, so it's okay if you can't see the mural. I guess, if anything, it's good because you can focus on, like, we can focus on the discussion anyway. So is there, Kapil, something specific that those of us who have access to sticky notes or even in the chat, like, what questions can we answer about how to help you be successful in this meeting, in this workshop? Like, what questions can we help advise you on?
So one is, as Mark said, having the right balance of jumping between the knowledge part of it versus the activity part of it. What's the ideal mix? And based on what he saw on the agenda, do I need to change something about it? B, what's an ideal activity? What's a digital first activity that we could do to drill down the importance of empathy?
Okay, so I'm just typing these up. How do I strike the right balance between interactivity and knowledge share? And then the second one is, remind me one more time. Apologies. Typing is, you're looking for an activity? Yes.
But, it has to be something which is like digital native rather than repurposing a face-to-face activity.
Right. And what would be the purpose of that activity again?
Because
what's the goal? Yeah.
To develop to have a conscious understanding of what empathy is. We have heard the term several times. We vaguely know what it is, but to really feel it by doing it. I need for them to have a moment where something goes, aha, so this is it. This is what it feels like.
Okay. I love that. Great. Okay, so here's what I'm going to ask. And for the group who's in the mural, if you can look at the Zoom share, I'm going to show you how I'm setting this up. And I'll ask you to do the same for your session. It's a little bit on the fly, of course. So on one side, on the left side, actually, I'll summon all of you. That's a brilliant idea. I'll ask you to follow me. So you can see what I'm doing. Yay, hi everyone. I love to
Hello, cursors.
The crowd comes over.
Little koi fish swimming up to you. Yeah.
So
I have an idea. What we could do in this is some sort of a like a cell phone has haptic feedback. So when the facilitator summons everyone, the screen shakes.
I don't know if that'd be good or just like, no, I don't know if I would get like motion sickness. But it would be helpful.
Yeah.
So here's what I'm thinking about how we would do this. I want to make sure everybody has the questions, 1 and 2, and if you need to grab them from the top, I'll duplicate so you can bring it over to your little workspace. But I want you to use the sticky notes to respond to the questions that Kapil just asked in your little area. And you can use images, you can bring in links, you can use sticky notes, whatever you need to do to help answer these questions for Kapil. That will be super beneficial for the group. So I see some of you are already copying and pasting. Yep, make sure you copy and paste. Don't drag it away. But
yeah, for those following along visually who are not able, who are not one of our wonderful participants in the mural, I'd like to pose the question about what are some of the challenges that they face around generating empathy or working in teams where there isn't empathy for the end user or for the person you're problem solving for. What are some of the challenges you've had when empathy wasn't present?
Awesome. And you can use the chat to answer that, right?
Yeah.
Great. Thank you. All right. We are working on so many different axes right now. I promise, Kapil, like it's gonna make yours look like a breeze.
And there is another thought I would like to share here, because we are doing this virtually. So, and they will be working in teams. So, the typical dynamics that you have about reading body language, being in the same environment don't exist now. So that probably makes it even harder when you're also, because you may not know the person who's in your team. So how do you build that rapport with somebody you're not really interacted with and work on a joint problem?
Right. So, because I think the purpose of doing that is safety, like a feeling of psychological safety in a way. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Awesome. So that might be actually people in the chat might be able to talk about how to create psychological safety while our group in Mural can answer the first 2 questions. So you're getting like so much advice. Oh my gosh, I'm excited to see what we find. So let's maybe for the audience here, tackle the first question. And I'm going to give us, I'm going to try and time box this a little bit and say we're going to take 5 minutes. But the first question, Mark, let's explore with Kapil. How do we strike the right balance in a meeting, an online meeting, right? Because it's quite different, between interactivity and knowledge sharing? So here we go. So I'm trying to think back to your agenda, and maybe it might help if you could look back at your agenda, because you said that you're doing a lot of the activities, like get to know you activities in the first hour or so, right? So the group has understanding. So in terms of where are you in the world? It's a lot of it teaching them how to use Mural.
Yes. So, the challenge again here is that they're learning a new tool. So there would be somewhat a lack of confidence they would feel because they're not really comfortable with the tool. At the same time, you're also making them think and doing a lot of that. So they might already feel a bit fragile trying to figure out, clicking multiple times on Mural and all of that. And then you're also getting them to do certain activities, which, there might be a gap in confidence at times, I would feel.
Yeah, I think definitely, right? And I think part of your role as the facilitator in that first hour is making them feel comfortable as quickly as possible, or as you can get to the content. Something that I found really helpful even in the first couple of minutes is to give them a guided tour of the digital space, kind of how when you walk into an in-person workshop, you get a sense of what the session is going to be like based on the layout, right? Like if there's whiteboards and sticky notes and the tables are set up a certain way, it's very different from a boardroom setup. So I think you have to give them kind of a guided experience through that. So even saying you're going to be using, you said your tools were Zoom, Teams, Mural, and just giving them a sense of here are all the different places and spaces we're going to be working in today. And making sure they know, at certain points I'll be sharing my screen, but so make sure that, and you'll see I might be sharing the Mural on the screen, but also make sure that you have your browser and Mural opened up in your browser so that you can, when it's time to interact, you interact. And then when I have questions, I'm going to post it in Teams, for example. So you also want to make sure you have that open and looking there. So you're setting them up for success fairly early.
Right. Would it be a good idea to actually record a video beforehand, send them 5 minutes just talking about what to expect? Will probably save us time later on.
Absolutely.
I think it's a great idea. Almost like a tour of the space. That'd be really cool. I'm always hesitant. I mean, I think it's worth doing, especially like if you can reuse that asset over and over again. Some people don't always do pre-work, right? Like that's always a risk. But I think if you reinforce it, like, hey, this is going to be to save us time and so we can get to the meeting goals, please watch this 3-minute video of a virtual tour of the space.
That's great. We have some good suggestions too from the audience around one, time boxing and making sure that you have a sequence of little activities and you let everyone complete it successfully before you move on so no one feels left behind. So make them small and attainable, and start simple and get a little more complex and a little more complex. And then crowdsource, what were people's insights or what were the things they saw that was holding them up. The other notion is to actually take part of the agenda just to practice using the tools, window management. How are people putting their Zoom versus their Mural versus the chat? How are they managing these things and getting everyone comfortable and situated and actually building that into the agenda even the day of? Because like Haley says, not everyone does the pre-work and we'll do that. So.
And I like that idea, Mark, coming back to what you were saying of you don't have to be the expert in the room, but you, Bill, would be by doing that, like your warm-up activities as a learning experience to learn setup, you're giving other people the chance to share best practices too. So it's like we're all in this together, we can all help each other. I like that.
So what's the ideal ratio of participant versus facilitator here? If I'm looking at like 16 people, how many people should I have along with me in my team?
Facilitators, even for relatively small, for cohorts of 4 people, I think you could pretty much have just a one facilitator to 4 is fine. When you start getting into cohorts where you need to break them down into smaller groups for breakouts, I think you always need at least 2 facilitators. They both don't have to be experts, but you need someone who can handle side conversations and technical glitches and issues and things and allow you to keep the momentum going with the people who are, who are connected and active and current, and have someone else that can kind of troubleshoot and also plan ahead. Like even, Backstage Pass, Haley's fully capable of running the show by herself, but it is kind of nice to have someone who can keep an eye on the chat or answer questions or, be an advocate for a certain audience that might not be represented at one point or another, with screen sharing and everything. So.
Yeah. And it's always good to have, even if somebody in the meeting who's going to attend might be a little bit more comfortable with the technology, you might want to give that person a role and say, hey, Mark, I know you are feeling like comfortable with these tools already. Do you mind if I reach out to you to help troubleshoot if somebody's having an issue? Or do you mind, we're going to have breakout rooms, for example. Do you mind if I call on you to help coordinate an activity for one of those groups? And yeah, maybe pull them in for 30 minutes to teach them the exercise before the meeting starts so that they're set up for success. And then you have peace of mind that you have someone supporting you as a co-facilitator or an organizer, or whatever you need that person to be at that time. So I think that also helps relieve the pressure for yourself.
Could we have, somebody from the group? In fact, with every team, we can have a table leader or somebody like that, whom we can engage beforehand, and maybe just ask for their help.
Yeah. I think that'd be really great. And it would probably make them feel good, that you are identifying them. And yeah, at least as long as you brief them before and maybe have a sync and say, you're a table lead, here's what I'm going to ask you to help us with, here's the activity, even saying like, these are some common challenges I've seen come up in past online meetings, and here's how you navigate them. And answering their questions, so they feel confident going into that meeting too.
Yeah, I'm just I'm going to ask you to follow me briefly, because I just wanted to highlight for the people on the audience to see how wonderful the participants are building out and answering. So even what you can't see happening on the mural while we're kind of focused on one conversation is the simultaneous concurrent offloading of really cool, interesting ideas that Kapil, you'll be able to just have access to this mural and all of this, right, as well as everyone on the session. I just love the crowdsourcing of all of the collective smarts. To my point, why do I do this? I don't have to be the genius. Look at all this really great feedback that everyone can collectively share.
Mm-hmm. So, and it looks like it's our Lobster Post, which I know who that is, but I'll let him reveal himself, is saying, that he or she, I don't know, gosh, I already gave it away. Not that much though. You have that pre-work to kind of build the skills before class. And I guess it's just reinforcing the importance of that pre-work. And then, the day of, you're reinforcing that with an activity like the icebreaker to be comfortable. So that's really cool. Thank you, Lobster Post, and wonderful pseudonym. All right, so I'm keeping track. I think that was our second question to explore. Does that anything? I was trying to capture some of the notes here while we were sharing and speaking. But is it okay for us to shift? Maybe do a quick tour of some of the other responses we're getting from the group, and then we'll go into the third question. Or I think I numbered it 2, but it's the one about the activities, empathy building activities.
Before you transition, I can just highlight another bit of feedback from the audience is, you're looking at empathy exercises. You need it's almost any area of inquiry will work, but you want to make it thought-provoking, but you don't want to make it frightening. You don't want to make it too deep. You also, and I know even in the classes I was teaching with Luma, we had to pivot. It's sometimes because we used to use an exercise around childhood diabetes, and so that was pretty effective for people getting present to a situation that maybe wasn't common to them, but then sometimes it could seem like we were just being a little too hard-hearted or not empathetic enough ourselves in using, a childhood disease to gain empathy. It almost, it can really backfire on you if you don't have the right empathy yourself about the right exercise to use to gain empathy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Awesome. And thanks for sharing advice in the chat. Those of you who aren't on the mural, it makes a huge impact, and we can collect that stuff from the chat and put it into this mural. So when we share this mural after, you'll have the full collection of advice. I like doing that work later on. And we do share the recording and this mural after these sessions. So if you don't mind, I do want to go around before we get into the next question to just see what our crew says here. So Tatiana, in terms of striking the balance between interactivity and knowledge share. So activities like energizers. She said it's important to explain the concepts. I think it's also good to build on that, to show an example of what quote unquote good looks like, what the end result you're trying to get to. So the group knows how to get there, and you are providing that blueprint for them. Jay.
Sandy's requesting a little X key zoom action on these Post-its.
Yeah. Okay, here we go.
So explain, what mysterious voodoo is this that you're doing?
Yeah, so it's the ability to zoom in on any element, even if you aren't zoomed in. So I could zoom all the way out, and apologies for the motion sickness, but if I zoom all the way out and I hold the X key on my keyboard, I can see elements without having to zoom all the way in. So for this question about, the question was, how do I strike the right balance? I was like, oh, what's the question? Jay said, it's about playback, so kind of unpacking the activity afterwards. Icebreakers, group leads, so we've already mentioned. So we're not too crazy, have fun. So making it playful, I love that too. It's not too serious. Ooh, having teams come up with a team name.
Yeah.
Spontaneous conversations, and a parking lot. Yeah. Always having a parking lot for related questions or ideas. Yeah. So I like this, talking about looking for interaction, because I love this one. In virtual meetings, we don't necessarily feel comfortable speaking up. So asking the group for that and setting that expectation that it's interactive. Just zooming in on these. But Kapil, any questions for clarifying questions on anything you're seeing? We're all good. It's a lot to take in, so.
There's a lot to take in, yeah. That's the thing.
Yeah, it's a lot of digesting, so that's okay. And I want to give you the time to do that.
I'm just running rapidly, so much of information now.
Yeah, no, I know. So maybe what we can do is, why don't we shift to this second question you had, which is, what activity can you do online to help others learn and feel empathy by doing it? And so for our group that's in the mural, I'll ask you, if you haven't already, to start answering that question. And for people in the chat, if you can also type in your responses. And then Mark and I are going to have a conversation with you, Kapil, out loud. So crazy thoughts, right? So Kapil, maybe tell us first, I know you had an idea for this, so maybe tell us what you were thinking about doing, and we can either say like pivot, or you can be like, you know what, I want to ditch my idea entirely and just hear what you guys think. But either way.
So initially the plan was to show them that the GEMRI video and talk about that, because I found it to be very powerful, the Doug Dates video. But what we decided, in fact, was to move that to the webinar. So we won't be able to use it in this workshop. Because that's also something important. And what I did, instead of just showing, because again, we don't have time. So what I did was, I got a clip of the sound an MRI machine makes. And I'll play that for like 15 to 20 seconds in that session. Because it's one thing to talk about and show photographs, but most people would not have heard the sound. And then you talk about, okay, imagine listening to this for like 3 hours. So that was my way of building empathy. Let them go through the sound that MRI machine makes just for 15, 20 seconds. Just to drill down how drastically things change for kids who actually took up on the adventure series later on. But right now I'm really wondering, what do I do? which is digital first. Like, how do we leverage that situation, this situation? Because I'm worried if I take up a face-to-face activity and try to do it online, so there will always be something missing.
Yep. Well, the thing that I like about that is suddenly, okay, so I've been concerned all along about a 15-minute window to try and actually complete an exercise to get people present to what we mean by empathy and then to actually experience empathy and reflect on the experience we just had. That's not a lot of time to do that. But your solution is brilliant, I think, for a couple of reasons. One, you don't have to go into breakout rooms. You can have everyone in the primary channel experience that sound, provided they all have an audio connection. In real time. And then in the canvas, without having to go into breakout canvases, you can give them, 2 minutes, 3 minutes to have them then capture what they became present to, right? As a result of imagining, I'm going to play a sound and imagine that you have to sit quietly, not move, and listen to this for half an hour. And then you play it for them, and then you invite them to kind of work individually and capture in notes what they feel, and then you facilitate a group share out, which is essentially one person at a time. The kind of logistics of that don't require you to go to a breakout room, and I think it keeps everyone together and focused, and even people that don't share out directly are participating in people that had a strong empathetic response, are able to kind of put into words things that I think that help the entire group get to where you need them to get to and reflect. And I think you could probably achieve that within a 15-minute window.
Yeah, the challenge is that I'm already using this exercise in a webinar, which is a prerequisite for this.
Oh.
That's why.
So they'll see it and they won't yeah, okay.
The magic is, you want it to be magical in a way, because there's that empathy is like an aha.
Right. So in that case, I think I'm doing that in 10 minutes probably. So because it's a webinar, it's going to go very fast. I need something, because now when you hear sound, you're also engaging more senses than just the visual. Mm-hmm. So maybe something similar if I have to do just this, or maybe something that they have to do as an activity. Either of these two would work.
I wonder, my first thought, because I love the sensory experience. So, and I like the idea that what you were talking about with the sound is connecting it to, a solution, in a way where, I think you said the MRI machine, how it's okay, well, people used empathy to understand a child's experience and used that to solve a problem. So I think if you could find a story, a design story, even from IDEO or from Mural, where you've seen the results of empathy, and then you bring it back to, so for example, I think the GE MRI machine story that you're talking about, that one is really powerful, how they made it more of a sensory experience and fun than a panic experience. But to say, okay, well, start them by having them close their eyes and actually read an experience to them. So having them get immersed in that journey, and getting that feeling you're you feel trapped in this little space, you're scared, you're wondering where your parent is, why do you have to be here, why can't you move? And really getting them immersed in the story, and then bringing them out, asking them, debrief it briefly. How did that feel? How did that, and I'm debriefing it a little, and then tying it back to this is empathy. This is putting yourself in the shoes of someone else and understanding, so you can solve challenges for them, and showing them this is the result of using empathy, and connecting it back to the purpose of empathy, I think, is the power there.
What I'm really worried about is that one is to understand empathy at an intellectual level. You can define it, you can talk about the traits, you can talk about the cognitive empathy and all of that. But one is to really truly experience it. make it experiential. So I found that MRI thing to be very experiential because you are there in that moment. You can feel yourself, and then you can relate with a child who is already scared and worried, and he or she has to put up with this. So something on similar lines, which is more experiential and sensory, rather than getting them to think about something, maybe experience it in some fashion.
I'm trying to think about.
So we have some from the chat. We have people are sharing all sorts of wonderful links. We have one, Ernesto Ciroli's TED Talk. Here, I'll drop the link right here. Let's see. Here, let me follow you, Haley.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to put that in the. Oh, thank you.
You bet. So, so I think part of the trick here is you don't want to be disingenuous, or you don't want to risk making light of something like a handicap or a disablement or different ablement. But you can do things that require, like, trying to answer a question in a time constrained thing using one finger on your keyboard, or closing your eyes and doing some type of activity that is not impossible, but really requires you to to struggle in some way. But some of those things, I think, can often backfire because they either gamify something that shouldn't. I mean, that's kind of the wrong energy that you're generating. And to your point, you need something that gives them a quick access to an experience, an actual experience, not because empathy doesn't work if we intellectualize it. If you just stay like, oh yes, I could theoretically understand how this might be a challenge, but it's very different if IDEO just shared a story recently of a woman who started a mail order infant milk business. And she said, when I didn't start a business to start a business, I tried to solve a problem that needed solving because I was really present to how important that problem was to solve. And then a business happened to result from my need to solve this challenge. And I think over and over again, it's that connection with deeply empathizing with the situation that actually brings the insights, brings your creativity to bear powerfully.
It could be something they have probably experienced in the past, and they could revisit that moment in their life where it could be particularly painful or something like that. So revisiting memories, but finding a shared memory is going to be tough.
Yeah, the other, I mean, you're touching on kind of liberating structures, crowdsourcing the experience as well, which there's always a risk because people have different levels of comfort with sharing. Oh, right. and people have different levels of comfort with being exposed to what other people are sharing. So you want to have some plants in the audience, some people that have a good story that can get them present to something without it being really traumatic.
I'm also looking at some advice from our group here on the Mural. And so, for example, Linda said a focused conversation is a top method that you can use, and I imagine we can get the link to that as well. Let me see. Each person shares an experience where they felt empathy, and of course, having to define empathy, I think, is important to do that. But definitely being able to, for stories and examples, is great, and that way it's reinforcing what empathy is. Let me see what else we have here. Present a simple problem and how users would use empathy in this specific case, or would they experience a lack of empathy?
What I've also seen when we ask people to come up with stories is that a lot of them are about looking good in front of others. So not as much as sharing something insightful, but something where they come out looking good. And especially when you are in a group where you don't really know each other, psychological safety is more or less absent. So maybe they'll not come out with ideas, or maybe they'll come up with stories which probably don't have any value for the group.
Maybe if you frame it, I totally understand that too. If you frame it as why do we need empathy? Like if you define empathy and you can ask them like, why, tell us. I like the opening, if you keep it an open question, like why is it important? Or tell us about a time where you had to have empathy for someone else. Unfortunately, I know we're at the end of our time. I don't know if we'll necessarily hopefully this helps you think about it a little bit more, but Kapil, we can definitely keep in touch and keep working on this challenge, because this is really a great, tough question to unpack, and maybe we didn't get to do it full justice, but
and these people are going to be in different geographies again, so one's life experience may not necessarily translate to somebody else's. That's also a challenge.
Yeah. So let's keep the conversation going, Kapil. You and I and Mark, we are connected through Slack, but I want to be mindful of your time and everyone's time here. And so first of all, thank you so much for joining. As we're closing out, thank you for joining us today and for being open to sharing your experience and your challenge with us, because I think it's a lot that we're experiencing. And for those of you who are still with us, if you our feedback is a huge gift for us. If you can share on a scale of 1 to 10 how you would rate this session we did today and why. Why'd you give it that rating? So 1 being yes, it was a big waste of time. 10 being it was amazing, and tell us why. And for those of you who want the link to the mural, we'll share it in the recap. And yeah, Mark also.
I just dropped it in too.
Yes. So we always want to share these insights with you, and we'll take the stuff from the chat, Kapil, and the rest of the group, and bring it into this mural so everyone has it and can use it. But thank you so much. I'm going to close out our session today, and I hope you have a really wonderful weekend, Kapil.
Yeah, thank you, everyone, and really appreciate the extended audience as well. Such great. I mean, this is definitely a chat thread to save because there's tons of great links and really good answers to questions that even extend the feedback we got in the mural as well.
Could we post the chats on the mural itself?
Boom! I just added it as a file.
Excellent.
There you go.
Have a wonderful weekend, and Kapil, thank you again. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for doing this.